ask, but from you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, all. First of all, it's a true pleasure to be a part of this group. It's always important to exchange and learn, exchange experiences and learn from each other. It's has been in the journey of healthy entrepreneurs very important. And without partners, friends, colleagues, peers, we would not have achieved where we are today. My name is Joost van Enge. I'm a founder of Healthy Entrepreneurs. I founded Healthy Entrepreneurs 12 years ago. I'm Dutch originally. I have a master in business administration. My first job was selling canned meat, spam for the Americans amongst us. I've been traveling all over the globe to sell canned meats, and I've been in more than 150 countries to do so. Then I've been working for 7 years in the distribution of essential life-saving drugs for a Dutch organization, traveling the globe again, supplying to all central medical stores, large NGOs like Doctors Without Borders, Red Cross, but also USAID and Global Fund funded projects, thinking that I could combine my private sector experience with actually life-saving products. Not realizing that actually spam was way better distributed than actually life-saving drugs, which to my humble opinion is not the way it's supposed to be. And so 12 years ago, together with a colleague, we decided to actually create a company that's called Healthy Entrepreneurs, that actually founded to look for alternative ways to further improve the supply chain of life-saving and essential health services, well, products and services, especially for the most vulnerable population in the world. And so I was inspired by an entrepreneur on the Philippines. You can all Google him. It's a Chinese gentleman that has created the chain of franchise pharmacies called Generic Pharmacy. He has more than 2,000 outlets all over the archipel and has been able to solve the whole issue of actually lack of access to life-saving drugs. Realizing it, I felt like, well, if he can do so, why isn't it us to also do the same on the African continent? A bit stubborn, a bit innocent, probably, but at least worth a try. Because in the end, we have tried franchise pharmacies, we have tried franchise drug shops, and we realized that the lack of trust amongst people on the continent here is actually not the reason why franchising isn't so much working in the more professional workspace. However, we also learned in our journey to look for the right channels to actually reach the last mile, that actually the cohort of existing community health workers is a very much interested group that actually is willing to be franchised, actually appreciates the dedication and support. And so that's how we have actually developed a franchise model in the last 7 years that actually supports community health workers in actually completing their community health entrepreneurship module. I'm calling this CHEM nowadays. It's grown. It wasn't called like this before, but this is actually part of the national programs we are running in different countries, whereas actually the community health workers are offering additional services next to the traditional free services they are supposed to deliver. We are offering additional value-added services in the category of nutrition, personal care, a number of pharmaceuticals, and even we have developed services for hypertension, diabetes, and other chronic diseases, combining actually patient vital measurements, telehealth, and actually our innovative e-dispensing approach, where we are bringing actually in a controlled way treatments of prescription treatments delivered at the doorstep in a rural village. And so we do this with the ambition to actually improve access to healthcare. In the broader sense, preventative, curative over-the-counter, and even curative prescription treatments, aiming to improve access to healthcare in the best way, aiming to reduce the cost to access healthcare by reducing transport costs and actually the cost of treatment, which is approximately 15% below market price. By doing so, at the same time, we are creating an income. We are creating a sustainable incentive for community health workers to be compensated for the work they do, compensated for the time and effort they actually invest in it. The model has a win-win-win for all, because we are supporting the final beneficiaries in rural villages, actually benefiting from service provision. We are supporting community health workers to be compensated for activities they conduct, and we help national governments, district governments to increase health outcomes in the broader sense. Because with improved service provision, we are able to further, reduce health challenges and increase actually health outcomes. The good thing and interesting thing is that at the moment in the Kisumu County in Kenya, we are actually implementing a complete, fully integrated approach where actually the community health entrepreneurship module becomes part of the national system offering community health services, or actually healthcare services delivered at the doorstep using community health workers, offering services at a third of the cost that the government would pay if they would use their health insurance fund. So actually we are helping them to reach their health objectives, using to actually offer free healthcare services, and at the same time making sure that actually people don't have to travel, don't have to invest their time and effort to travel far doing so. And so it's fascinating how the model has continued developing and actually is a way that we are now, well, on the brink to actually become part of the national health strategy for Kenya, to be implemented and replicated to thousands of more community health workers in the coming years. And so we do actually in other countries. Health Entrepreneurs is active in, at the moment, 7 countries, expect this year to open up the 8th country. And aim to really replicate the model more, aiming to by 2030, thinking ahead, to have 400,000 community health entrepreneurs actually active in our network, operating in 15 countries. We are currently only at 25,000, so still we have quite a long road ahead of us. But the logic is if you have different countries where you're operating in, including Nigeria and Ethiopia, there is an enormous potential market where you can grow. And as long as we can actually use our very simple standard operating procedures and we grow in parallel next to each other in different countries, we are able to reach such a target. However, 400,000 by 2030 is only 20 to, I think, 23% of the total community health workers cohort operating in rural villages. So still, with all our effort, we are still only serving a small part of the market. So we always hope that anyone, whoever is willing to actually think and learn about our model. We are willing to share anything because we need more replicating partners to actually start doing the same, because we want to be a game changer. We want to change the system because this model is actually the way we bring dignity to people. We motivate community health workers in the right way, and actually we make community health systems sustainable. Thank you.
Thanks, Joost. You talk very fast, but you have a lot to tell. Maybe shall we limit it a little bit to some clarifying questions first? So probably you have.
Hi. Yeah, I have 1,000, but I'll start with one. Can you clarify your e-dispensing model? I think you mentioned that you were using that in order to deliver medication, but if you could just clarify like where the prescription comes from, who actually delivers the medicine, how you guys manage those logistics, that would be very interesting to me.
Do I get a few questions or respond to each question? I think I respond now. And then, so the e-dispensing solution is actually, the logic is community health workers can collect patient vitals. They can measure blood pressure. They can measure blood sugar. They can measure weight. They can measure length. We don't want to train them to become health experts because they are not qualified. They're not able to. But using a phone call or actually using our telehealth solution, we can actually use the patient vitals to share with medical experts at a distance. The medical expert will receive the patient vitals, register this in our electronic medical record that has the unique number, the unique identifier that the patient has with him or her. That information will then actually be translated into a prescription that will be sent back into the community. And when sent back, actually the entrepreneur receives the prescription, opens it up, and actually gets the name of the treatment and the number of the package. So we make sure for hypertension there is 5 packages, including a barcode. For diabetes, there is 4 packages, including a barcode. And so we want the community health entrepreneur to scan the right package that corresponds to the prescription. And so we are able with a 99.9% security that actually the right package is delivered to the right patients. Making sure that we know what are the patients actually on treatment. We can forecast what products need to be available on the ground. And so we are able to make sure that we have all the data points that we can control and distribute these products without having a physical intervention with the medical doctor or the pharmacist, and still being in control to deliver the services at home. I hope this clarifies.
So I have a question. So you mentioned in the beginning that trust is a like issue. So how did you address that issue of building trust of this community health worker so in the community? So that's one side. And another side that we have seen is like once people in India, we have we see in a rural area, there are a lot of quacks who are there, like who know some basic medicines, and they are treated as a doctor, and they don't know actually how to treat. They know a few medicines like paracetamol and something, and they are treated as a doctor in the village. And so this sometimes is very harmful. So how do you balance this both? And one is the building trust, and second is that trust leading to something negative.
Well, thank you so much. The beauty of our experience on the African continent in multiple countries with community health workers is, and I know it's not one-to-one comparable with India, but the community health workers we are dealing with are part of the public health system. So they are not independent community health workers, they are actually part of the national system. They have been selected by the community, and so they are actually known to be trusted. That still doesn't mean there is trust, but at least it's the beginning. So then actually what happened is that in many cases, the governments have not supported community health workers smoothly. And people were actually forced to go to the private sector where we have someone, in our case, at a distance, offering some services, not knowing what's the quality, not knowing that actually the price is fair. In many cases, it's not. As just an example, 150% markup on treatment for hypertension, diabetes is quite extreme. But well, if there's no alternative, you will actually have to pay for. But also knowing that actually the quality and reliability of the service provision through someone who is not qualified is actually very difficult. So HE, or Health Entrepreneurs, helps to get people back into the public health system. So we are a very close partner of the government. The government actually appreciates our intervention because we are doing something they can't. They cannot do stock management, they cannot organize it, they don't have the funding. And at the same time, we can do this. And at the same time, we can actually be auto-funded, and we have actually different sources, potential sources of actually paying the bills. And so it is bringing people back from the private sector back in the public system where there is benefits. And so that's where still the trust comes in. And that's where there's finesse. It's just not the standard private sector approach. It's also not the standard government approach. So that's where we are disruptive. That's where we are new, but also that's actually where the appreciation comes in at community level. I think you had a second question. Can you kindly repeat?
No, second question is like follow up on this. When people feel that like in India, as I mentioned, this people, when they know some basic things about healthcare in rural areas, doctors are not there. They start treating these people as doctors, and for basic thing like a fever or something, they know the paracetamol works, and they give that and it works. But like for a complicated disease, they are unable to treat, or like they do treatment which actually has an adverse effect. So how do you manage that? How do you monitor the network?
Well, we have very clear interventions. We have agreed with the government what we are offering. So we have a so-called service charter. That service charter is actually communicated at national level, at district level, at sub-county level. And so everyone is aware it's actually part of our backbone, what we are offering. This is not just a random set of services. So it's clear what is allowed, what is not allowed. We are even working with government officials that also validate and check on it. We also have a very clear exit procedure in case you do not commit to what is actually expected. You start doing your own things, you're actually out immediately. And since we are actually a reliable source of income, we are actually organizing a reliable supply chain that actually really brings the products and services to people. This is actually the way we are, controlling, including the data points, including the performances we manage with a lot of data that's actually behind, because data management is key. We have a lot of data points, and so we have performance dashboards at individual levels and and also at cluster level. So there's also the cluster support. It's really the framing, it's really the network, it's really the conditions that is accepted, that's not accepted, and keep on repeating using marketing communication. So we are drilling as far as we can what's supposed to happen. That it's not 100% perfect, it's true. At the same time, the morale is actually there, and people are trusting more people through the public than actually the local ones, if available.
So
And,
maybe Tony and oh, sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
can I ask one question? Do the healthcare workers, are they paid for being healthcare workers? Or are they getting compensation for the services that they're providing to, the medicines and services they're providing?
Thank you so much. This depends country per country. There is an ongoing fight, community health workers, to actually receive the stipends. Stipends are not automatically available. Uganda don't pay stipends at all. Kenya does a little bit, but the stipend represents 15% of the time, maybe 20% of the time of a community health worker. So with the government, we agree, if stipend is paid, that they will actually get paid for 15 or 20% of their time for free service provision, 40% of their time actually on offering their community health entrepreneurship services, and then they remain having 40% time to actually work in their garden. So it's not fixed, it really is circumstantial. However, we know the stipend sources of income and actually funding are always fragmented. They come and they go, and we are actually a solid base of actually income. So the longer people work with us, the more they appreciate our stable source of income instead of actually the flexible part. That's perceived as a good, nice one to have.
Okay. And the income coming from you is it based on like per product they sell?
Margin.
Is it
Yes,
commission?
margin. So they have 35% markup on every product they sell on average.
Okay. And how do you keep them from over prescribing if they're getting a financial reward for every product they sell? Like everybody's got hypertension in our town,
The famous question that comes from anyone in the Western world, because everyone is always thinking about overprescribing. The answer is there's twofold. First of all, we have procedures how to actually come to a prescription treatment. And so we have to get patient vitals. It's very clear what is needed to happen. If not, no prescription, at least not through our channel. And as we have the controls to avoid them using other channels, that's what we can do. Secondly, most of the products we are offering through our entrepreneurs are offered on credit, because the patient that's actually in need of products doesn't have the immediate money, but they need to collect money. And so it is actually a bigger risk for our entrepreneur to actually offer more products than barely needed, because they have to take the financial risk initially themselves anyway, although they will get paid back. And then as we also combine this with actually the long-term commitment at the community level, where we're not talking about urban Kampala, but we're talking about rural village, people are not so much cheating on each other, and they're actually really trying to support each other within the limited means. So the question I understand, and if you talk about Kampala, I hear you, but in the rural settings, this is not the case. It's actually, we are there together. This is where this community intervention is the reason I'm here, because I'm so much inspired by the way communities can look after themselves, and they will do.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and the community health worker is bearing the risk of repayment?
Well, that's it's a shared risk, because we also providing credit to them, and we train them to actually get their payments in. And so this is actually probably one of the vulnerabilities of our model. And so we train to get paid, but at the same time, it clearly explains why overprescription is not the case. It's actually making sure that everyone gets the bare minimum, and actually we are socially helping each other. And still, the sustainability of the entrepreneur model has proven to be high. There is sometimes some lack of payments, and that's also where there is some flexibility sometimes on our end, although we also are having that conversation ongoing. We are currently also working on actually projects where actually we can bring in additional funding based on the so-called value chain embedded lending, which you might also be interested in actually, because it's a way that we can see based on what has been performed, how we can actually provide certain levels of credits using credit scoring and everything to really make sure that there is a maximum of working capital available within controlled circumstances.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Joost. I know you have to leave, so much appreciated to have a happy 50th anniversary. And it's a bit of a pity that you will miss out on Catherine's story. I know you're super interested. You told me so. So maybe we are recording, so we will share the recording. You can see her story and then afterwards connect with her if you have questions. So first of all, thanks a lot. And I'm pretty sure that Tony will reach out to you, Joost, too, since she's super keen in bringing it to Nigeria.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day and good luck with the meeting. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Catherine, let's use the remaining time also to hear from you. So,
Great. Yeah,
please
happy
tell a bit
to
about
share
your model.
our Solar Sister experience. And I don't speak quite as fast as Joost, so maybe, but I'll try to get out there as much as I can. So Solar Sister was founded 14 years ago. We were founded in 2009, but really got started with our first 10 entrepreneurs in 2010. It is grown now to over 10,000 entrepreneurs have come through the Solar Sister system. And we are currently operating in Tanzania, Nigeria, and Kenya. And Solar Sister is really a very straightforward setup. Business model. We recruit, train, and support women in their local communities, mostly rural off-grid communities, to become clean energy entrepreneurs to sell solar lamps, home systems, clean cook stoves, sometimes things like fans or water filters, or you can think of anything that's appropriate for household or small farm holder. Or small enterprise type rural businesses. And the way it works is Solar Sister, the organization, is responsible for making purchases of these products in bulk. So we actually buy the products and then we on-sell them to our entrepreneurs in sort of in the just in time and just the amount they need and just where they are. So we manage kind of that first phase of distribution channel from the headquarters, which is the warehousing of the products bought in bulk, and then deliver them out to the entrepreneurs on a demand basis. So they are putting in orders to top up their inventories. The entrepreneurs are true entrepreneurs. They're not just agents. They are actually buying the product, taking ownership of it, and then adding a margin to it, and then selling to their community. So we do this through this network of women throughout all these communities. The women come together in what we call a sisterhood group meeting once a month. So in any particular community, there may be, say, 5 or 10 entrepreneurs serving that broader community. They'll come together at a group meeting, and that group meeting serves as the distribution point. So that's where our business development associate, who's our staff member, shows up at the sisterhood group meeting and delivers the products that those entrepreneurs have ordered and will need for the next month's sales. And so that's a transactional, part of the distribution right there. It's also a really important, it's really the backbone of Solar Sister, those meetings, because that's where the entrepreneurs come together, they support each other, they have a sense of belonging. It really gives them it's very hard to be an entrepreneur anywhere in the world. In these rural communities, it's even harder. And so having this sense of they are not alone and that they have a network, that they have an, entire, institution behind them to be an entrepreneur. And that's really important. The meetings are structured around typical women's group meeting, kind of, the women choose the venue, they choose the time, they choose who's in the group, they make up their own rules. So they really are self-governing meetings with the requirement that this is where the products are purchased. And then secondly, this is also where Solar Sister, the organization, provides the training and support to the entrepreneurs. And so we've developed a training program that is very basic, but very effective and very flexible to really meet the women where they are. Most of the women that we're working with have, primary education. Maybe only some have secondary education. A few have tertiary education. So the training is really geared to deliver basic business principles to the women in a format that they can take it in. Secondly, the technical training around the products and the technology so that they know what they're selling, they know the basics of it, how it works, how to repair it, how to, what the benefits are and that kind of thing. And then thirdly, agency-based training, which is really self-belief, the softer skills of leadership or self-belief or addressing personal challenges and things like that. So we have these 3 types of modules, basically. Every month they get a single module. So the training that they get for being an entrepreneur is delivered over time. There's a basic set that goes over the first year that they're an entrepreneur, that by the end of that year, they've kind of gotten everything they need. The business itself is very straightforward and, it's really, you can kind of get going with it without a lot of training. But what we have found is, and we rely on these are adult learners. And so adult learners learn best by doing. And so by starting their business and running their business, they actually learn how to do their business. So 70% of what an adult learns is by actually doing it. 20% comes from peers. You learn by looking at those around you and, picking up tips from people around you and things like that. And that's what the sisterhood group does. It gives them that opportunity to learn from each other. And then 10% of what adult learners learn is from actual formal, like classroom type, training session type environment. And that's what our training provides. So our training is actually the least important of all of it, but it is pretty critical in that, for example, one module will be best sales practices, how to actually, we call it connected selling, which is a way of selling that is really understanding your customer, making a connection with your customer, and then addressing their needs rather than the typical rural way of selling, which is akin to hawking products. It's like, hey, I've got this product here, buy it, that kind of thing. And so we teach them to, not be hawkers, but to be actually making connections, building out their networks and selling to meet people's needs, perceived pain points. And, so that might be one module that they get. And we find that they learn and are able to apply what they learn in those modules because they have already gone out and made the mistakes. By the time they get to that the module around connected selling, they've already come to realize the challenges of just trying to hawk products. Nobody listens to them. Nobody, wants to, people come up and just immediately jump on like, well, how much does it cost? And just try to beat down the price. And you don't have any defense against that if you haven't actually understood what your customer's most valuable points are. So by the time they get to, as we go through these different modules, they're relevant because they've encountered the challenges. They're able to absorb them, and really, really take them on. So what we do is we help the women. They are, as I said, they're entrepreneurs, so they're buying into the business. They come to, when we recruit an entrepreneur, what we're selling her is really an opportunity to run a business. And then what she brings is her own energy, her own commitment, her capital. So she starts by purchasing her inventory. It might be just 2 lamps. It might be tiny amount of investment in the business to start with because that's all she can manage. And that's okay. Again, we meet the women where they are and, grow it from there. And so we have some women who keep their businesses quite small because that's really what their ambition is. We have other women who grow the businesses quite big because that's what their ambition is. And we don't impose on them any sort of external, we have hopes and dreams for them, but we don't impose some kind of like external expectation of you must meet this KPI in order to be valid or in order to be a businesswoman or something like that, because, you know, it's up to her. You know, if she wants to sell on Sunday afternoons after church because she has a sitting group of women who want to buy products from her, that's great. You know, if that's her, you know, during the week, she's got 5 kids, she's got a mother-in-law she has to take care of, she's got to plant the garden, she's got to take care of the goats, you know, whatever. That's reality for that woman. And so she's going to do what she can do that meets her needs. You know, another woman is like, got an ambition. I want to open a shop. I want to go to the next village. I'm going to buy a boda, and, you know, that's going to help me expand my market. And, you know, and then we can also help her and help her achieve her goals. So it's very, very centric to the women themselves, which sometimes limits, you know, our, you know, us as an organizational ambition. We're kind of like, oh, we can see so much more potential, but that's not the priority. The priority is what do the women need for themselves. I guess I'll just speak to the impact of what we see is Solar Sister first started really to address the energy access in the rural communities. It was really seeing the need for you know, energy in areas that don't have access to the grid and solar energy. And when solar became product sized, it just opened up this opportunity to really widely distribute energy source. And then the best way to do that, we realized, was who is our customer in a distribution like that? And the customer is the woman of the household who's managing the daily energy needs of that household. And that's how Solar Sister became Solar Sister, because we were like, to reach those women, a network of women entrepreneurs is going to be a very effective way to do that, because the challenges of meeting those women was, first of all, them just knowing about the products that existed. Secondly, trusting that this technology would be worth investing in. You know, it's something new and different for them. And certainly at the time, it's better known now. But, you know, really bridging that trust of, you know, am I going to spend money on this product when I, you know, don't have a lot of extra money to spend? And so that's where we said, well, the best way to do that is through a network of women who can reach other women. And that became the Solar Sister Network. Over time, what we realized was sort of our solution, which was this, you know, network of women, actually became our mission because it, once we saw that women having access to economic opportunity and the impact that had on the women's lives, the impact that had on their families and their community, you know, just this ripple effect became so compelling that we realized really the strength is that, you know, by having women entrepreneurs be the distribution for clean energy is the best way to have the clean energy, you know, distributed in these rural areas. But also distributing clean energy in these areas, creating economic, as a way of creating economic opportunity for women, is really one of the best ways to give women economic opportunity. And the more that they have that economic opportunity, the more they're driving a stable community, and stable families, a stable community, you know, education for their children, economic activity that's happening in their community, not being sucked out, but it's actually, you know, contributing to the economic activity in their community. And then that itself, you know, just like improves things. And so it becomes this like little local engine of improvement, you know, a ripple effect of improvement throughout the whole community. So while our intervention is very like pinpoint targeted on women's economic opportunity, it's because we see that as being such a catalytic leverage point for the bigger community improvement. And, you know, seeing, you know, over years, we've watched this happen again and again and again, where the women, you know, their self-worth, because they're bringing income into their families, their value within their family, and they're standing even within their own family, and they're standing in the community, just is, you know, progresses as they have this opportunity. So that's where, you know, we're really recruit, train, and support, and then just keep this running. The women continue to be Solar Sister entrepreneurs for, tends to be a long time, although it is a permeable, there, again, there's no like contracts, there's no like forcing anybody to do anything. They come to the sisterhood meetings of their own free will. They keep coming because they find them valuable. They take the leadership role locally in making sure that others join the sisterhood group. They make, business decisions around, we've got already enough women in this area, but, maybe some women in the next town over, we could help them get started and that kind of thing. So I'll stop there just to take any questions or open up.
Thanks, Catherine. Very exciting to hear the progress also. It has been a couple of years ago. Well, fire away with some questions if you have. I can imagine that Devika with the women empowerment angle is also excited to hear about this model.
No, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. No, I think this is absolutely fascinating, and I love the way it has evolved into, even the name evolution is fascinating to me. I guess my question is more futuristic. Like, you've come so far, and Africa and the expansion is a geography of interest for many, but what do you see as an obstacle to scaling?
Yeah, this gets back to the question I think I asked you at the very beginning, right? Because it's a pretty high touch system. I mean,
Right.
Solar Sister, the organization, is super lean. We don't have a lot of people, it's not a great big NGO or anything like that. We operate within each country that we're in with a completely local registered entity that is running, like there's a Solar Sister Nigeria, there's a separate Solar Sister Tanzania, a separate Solar Sister Kenya, and they operate 100% locally staffed, and even they are pretty lean organizations. We just have a very small HQ staff, and then the business development associates is what makes up most of the staff, and they're the ones that go out and work directly with the women entrepreneurs. So, if you could, we have in total globally, our staff is under 200 people serving, we've 10,000 women entrepreneurs. You can see it's a pretty, pretty lean organization. That said, it's a pretty high touch process. We do have, the meetings are physical come together meetings. The business development associate goes to each meeting, and that's because that's part of that way we can, efficiently combine the travel expense to that rural area. As I mean, the business development associate lives within the district, but even the local district travel, is one of our biggest costs, and one of the biggest, inefficiencies is just getting to these markets. And so by the BDA combining the visit to the market, to the sisterhood group as being the physical distribution of product and the delivery of the training, we're combining basically our, the distribution business side of it with the capacity building, philanthropically funded side of it. That's why we're a hybrid organization. We're kind of leaning on each other to make that all as efficient as possible. It's so it's a bit high touch. We've done some work in making it more digitized and more, delivery of some of our trainings on either, mobile or tablets or phones, but, we're working in areas where the women don't have smartphones. They might have a feature phone, but that limits, like, you can't have kind of tablet learning that way and that kind of thing. So it's high touch. That I think is a challenge is scaling. It is also long patience. Like, you have to have a lot of patience, things. It's the fact that it's over time, these women, their lives change, but it's little by little by little each month. They're not, it's not like you flip a switch and all of a sudden they are, making so much money. It's like really, slow going. And so you have to have a lot of patience with that. I find many organizations and many funders do not have the level of that it takes to see the impact. We've got 15 years of story to show, like, it adds up over time. It's incredible. We've created something like 400 million worth of local economic benefits in the communities we work in, which is no small thing, but it's taken, takes a lot of time. So I think patience is the other thing. And then is, simply, I had one more, but it'll come back to me. I'll come when I remember it, I'll come back to you with it. There was one more that I had that was like, really.
If I may, one of the questions and challenges that people have faced is, you talked about the business development associates living in the neighborhood, and I imagine you invest a lot of time and energy into training them, right? Because this is not like a typical business sales transaction where you can just go in and pop in and say, hey, did you want a solar panel, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of community hand-holding, understanding context. One of the challenges people have faced is how do we keep the staff motivated and in the neighborhood and retain the staff? Have you faced similar challenges?
Yeah, definitely. It's yes, finding the right people. It's not a common job. We, early on, we always, when we would hire people, they would join thinking that they were sales agents, thinking that, what we were aiming for was to sell more products faster, bigger, and that was the goal. And so there was a real, there's a misalignment because, we track the products we're selling because it's a very good proxy for, like, if an entrepreneur's business is growing, then you're going to see it because she's selling more products or higher priced products or a diversity of products. You can track very good information around the entrepreneur's business growth and access to the energy in the community through those product sales. But that's different than like being all in about selling more products, because, if you're just looking to sell more products, the fastest way to do that is go talk to an NGO who wants to, give away 1,000 products, because they see that as a really great, philanthropic thing to do. And so early on, we had some of those mismatches where we'd be like, oh, somebody's doing so great, look at what they're doing. And then we'd look at what they're doing. We're like, oh, they're not doing so great. They're actually, causing harm because they're selling to an NGO who's then giving away products in the market where we're trying to help our entrepreneurs build a market. And it's just destroyed our entrepreneurs' market, because who's going to buy this if they can get it for free from the NGO down the street? So, that's a challenge, and finding the right people to really understand their job is more being a business coach than it is a salesperson. And also being a business coach, that we have real expectations of impact and productivity and efficiency and things like that. Because the minute you switch into the model of you're not a business salesperson, you are providing a capacity building and service, the mentality of it just changes. And so finding that person who sits right in the middle, that real social entrepreneur kind of mentality in communities that don't really, social entrepreneurship isn't as well understood. And then I think the final scaling issue is the business model that we've chosen is a hybrid model. So, we are earning income on the distribution side, and our goal is to at least cover the cost of the distribution from those sales. But that only represents about 50% of our cost. The other 50% of our cost is the investment in the capacity building of rural women entrepreneurs. And so bringing in philanthropic funds to support that piece of it. And it works very well that, basically the distribution leverages the amount of donations that we get, leverages the impact that we're able to achieve. And if you can take a look at it from that perspective, it's a really effective way to do it. But it's hard to get people to look at it from that perspective. We get people who funders, especially, who look at it's like, why aren't you making money? You know, why aren't you profitable as a distribution business? We don't want to support you because you're not profitable. And we're like, well, we don't want to be profitable. That's not our point. And then we look at, you know, we get funders who are looking at us and saying, you know, well, you're not a pure women's empowerment. You're an energy company. So, you know, we're going to fund women's empowerment, which means we're going to give to, women's health issues or something. And so it can be a little, you know, instead of being both energy and women's empowerment and even climate change are our three issues, instead of that opening more doors, sometimes it feels like it just shuts more doors, because they're like, if you're not a pure play, we're going to go where it's a pure play.
Oh my God, I just love hearing that, because that is exactly the kind of challenges we come up against all the time. It's so siloed, right? And people just want you to go and sit in your box. Don't leave it. Why are you complicating our life, right?
Right,
And
go sit in your
I mean,
box.
it's one thing for people to talk the talk, but it's an entirely another thing for them to walk that walk along with you, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm hogging this conversation. Erlyn, am I stopping other people from asking questions?
No, not at all. No, I think it was really lovely hearing you. Maybe Nitin and Tony, feel free to pop in a question if you have still. Otherwise, we.
Yeah, so Catherine, that's you have expanded to scaled to multiple geography. That's wonderful. And I had a question on distribution, but you kind of answered it because we have seen distribution is quite expensive, like when you have to deliver on-demand product. So that you talked about. Another thing what we have seen is this kind of product, and when the product bouquet increases, so servicing, after sale servicing becomes a challenge, and that also creates a trust issue. So how do you address that?
So the fact that our entrepreneurs live in their communities is actually, the kind of foundation of the trust. They know people in their community, people know them, people come to know them as like the solar sister, they become kind of famous in their community for this business that they're running. And we provide training on the whole warranty process or repair process and support them in that. So the products we're selling have typically, warranties provided by the manufacturer. The challenge is most people who are selling these products anyway ignore that because they don't want to it's a hassle to handle the warranty process. But it's really one of our important points that we support our entrepreneurs. So we provide them with the technical training to understand, is this a product that it's broken, or is this a product that is just installed wrong, or is repairable, or is not being, is it a user issue, or is it a product issue? So they can identify between those things. And if it's a product issue, is it still within warranty? And then if that's the case, many of our warranties are replacement warranties. So we will replace, and then we kind of handle the rest of the hassle of, getting the product back to the manufacturer and getting the replacement. But we'll go ahead and front the replacement to the customer to make sure that they don't end up having to wait for 6 months before they get their product replaced, because that just would destroy trust. So we kind of step out on that. And then if it's a repair issue, then we either, train our entrepreneurs to do simple repairs, or, identify local technician maybe in the area that they can go to help manage the repair. And so we focus on that aftermarket service because we see it as a real advantage of the Solar Sister entrepreneurs in building their business. It's something that they can really build a reputation of being there for their customers.
So thanks. Tony, do you have a last burning question before we let Catherine go?
I have a lot of questions. I'm just here listening. It's a pleasure to meet you too, Catherine. I've read a lot about Solar Sisters, and so it's like an honor to finally meet with who is the who behind it. Thank you for all that you're doing. So as you're talking, I'm listening because I work with a lot of women, and I understand the challenge of getting women to think about themselves as independent, or to start thinking about themselves as people who can do something and generate their income and all of that. And so there's a whole lot of things going through my mind that I might not even be able to verbalize right now, because I'm just trying to understand how much effort you've put into helping the women understand that they are the ones that can create the change they want to see. And they are the drivers of everything. And it's not just about charity, it's about you are doing it, you're generating the income, you're setting up your businesses, which is something that we're very, very interested in at Durian. So my organization is called Durian, and I work majorly in communities. We show them to use their local waste and resources as the means of livelihood. So it's the same thing we're doing, but using different methodology. And so we show them to start up small scale businesses as a group and then grow it together, either individually for some people and as a group. But I think the very burning question I have that I might want to go back to is, so because I've been working in communities, one thing I realize is, so we have people who are interested in businesses, but they do not have like maybe credits to start with, you know, and then we've been trying to think around, do we create a credit system? And what I mean by credit is not credit in cash, it's credit in products. So for instance, a small scale businesswoman who wants to run a supermarket, she does not have the money to go get the goods wholesale. So we're thinking, what if we create that wholesale system in credit for the woman, and then the woman pays back over a period of time? So that's something we're thinking around. And so when I was listening to you, I was wondering, what's the model behind how you get the products to the women in such a way that helps them come back and understand that they have a support system for them to grow their businesses?
Yeah. So we've been down all these paths. When Solar Sister first started, it was basically a micro consignment model, which meant that we provided products for them to sell. They would sell, keep the margin, and you know, give us the rest of the proceeds, and then we'd provide more products, basically like that. And what we found is that if we just showed up at somebody's door and said, here's a carton of these solar lamps, here's your basic startup inventory, when you sell it, you keep your margin and give us the rest, there wasn't enough distinction for them to really own that business. To them, they were doing a favor to us. They were like, okay, I will sell these for you. And, you know, got very low kind of uptake on it. Basically, somebody would say, no one would say, don't give me the box. Everybody would say, okay, I'll do it. And, you know, underline that, what we found was the feeling that came out of it was like, okay, I'll do this for you. And so it was like, well, that's not our point. You know, we're not here to, you know, I don't really care about selling the products. I'm caring about like you starting a business. And if you think that the only thing that we're here to do is to sell products because I need to sell products, that we're not hitting the point. So we ended up changing it from a micro consignment to, we said we need some mechanism where they actually take ownership of these products so that it is their inventory. They see it as theirs, not mine. And that they see those sales as being, they are selling products out of their inventory. It's their business. And so we said, okay, well, we'll make it that they actually buy the products, but, you know, they don't have enough money. So we'll sell it to them on credit. And then they will pay it, you know, basically we give them the product, They enter into a 30-day loan where they pay us back after 30 days, and that's enough time for them to have sold the product, so they'll have the money to pay us back. And so we did that, and we started, basically everybody got into the business by us giving them credit to start with, a product credit. What we found there is that it helped because they did actually take some ownership over the product, and they would at least think about the fact that, like, you know what, I can't sell a whole carton of these. Don't give me the whole carton. I don't want to be responsible for that. I could sell 10 in the next month, so I'll buy 10. So it did, at least they started to use a little bit of critical thinking and discernment around taking that ownership risk. That was really a good improvement. But by starting them off with credit, what we found is with a brand new entrepreneur, they are already taking on a lot of risk of starting a business. And credit is a risk multiplier. And so by starting your business with credit, you are really starting off with a high risk business proposition. Whereas what we've eventually come, and then because the credit was there, they interpreted that as being credit is part of this business, and I will sell my products on credit because I got them on credit. And then they would not get paid back in time, and then they couldn't pay us back in time. And then we would have to decide, you know, are we going to extend the terms? And then everybody sort of eventually got to, everybody was always at the maximum of their credit amount. Nobody, you know, it was really, and then that just kind of grinds the business to a halt because they can't buy any more product because they're already out on credit so much, they can't buy any new product. And so it kind of delayed the time frame from when they ran into, it like gave them 2 or 3 months worth of like runway to kind of get the business going. But if they were going to have trouble with the business, it was going to catch up to them because they were out on credit. You know, they had already maxed out their credit, and then it would show up. So that's when we ended up saying, you know what, we're not going to start them with credit. We're going to start them, just say like you're an entrepreneur, you know, you've got some money to start with. You can start as small as you like. And that's where we just said, you know, you can start as tiny as you want. And that is how we've gone from then. We have a couple of exceptions in the system. One is once they've been with us, I think you have to have been successfully operating for a year, you meet certain criteria, and then you are eligible for what we call our business booster program, which means like you've already been selling, you've got a business rolling, you've got some history, track record with us. And then we do open up a credit line for product purchases so that they can, you know, increase their business. But that's based off of they've already gotten over that initial business startup phase, demonstrated a track record, and now they've hit maybe a plateau where they can't really grow without capital. Then we do open up a credit line for them based on that history. So we have the Business Booster program for experienced, you know, entrepreneurs with us. And then we do have a program that we make available in highly vulnerable populations where we have identified, you know, they really literally have nothing that they could fall back on. For example, in Nigeria, there was a community of women returning to their home communities after 10 years of being in an IDP camp. So they returned back to their home community, and basically that's the end of their services that they got from being in the camp. That's the end of everything. They just kind of get taken to their community and dropped off. These women had nothing. They have no home. They have no, you know, after 10 years, they don't really have any contacts or family left in the community. They, you know, don't have any jobs. You know, they were really destitute, and, you know, they were no longer going to get even the basic services that they got while they were in the IDP camp. And so a really highly vulnerable moment in their lives. And we did a project that funded their initial inventory as a, you know, and then from that initial inventory, we worked with them to roll that over and turn that into ongoing income for them. But typically And that required actually a lot higher degree of hand-holding and attention, and really, holding them to standards of making sure that they help, rather than like our typical is like, you can participate in the level that you want, come or go. And, it's very much up to the woman. With that particular group, it did run more like an NGO program, where it's like, okay, next month you've got to come out, you got to show this, you got to do that. We really had to much more strictly work with them. So, so I guess that's my answer to you, is we have tried, the startup giving them startup capital or giving them a loan to start up. And we found it had its own issues for us. That's not to say you might find a different environment or a different way of handling it.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Catherine and
much.
Tony.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, sorry, I am a bit of a party pooper, but I also have to leave now myself. So I want to say thanks to you, Catherine, but all of you making this space and creating the learning. Catherine, maybe you have a last question. I don't want to prevent you from popping questions too, right?
No, I'll just say, gratitude for this opportunity to share. It's been really, really great to meet all of you and hear, know that we're all in the same boat. It sounds like, dealing with these same issues. So Erilyn, thank you so much for providing this venue to share this way. It was really great. And I also apologize for the late start, but thank you for persevering and making this happen.
No worries, but thanks a lot for sharing. And you're more than welcome to join the other meetups if you feel like that's an interesting topic I like to join. This is an open community, so please feel free to join on another topic. Thanks to the rest too. And well, let's take the learnings, bring them to our communities, and catch up again in another time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.